Right. Time to get down to the Mr. GLOAT podcast, ladies and gentlemen, where the first update for this episode is we have Canelo Alvarez taking on his first fight in his 20th anniversary. And when I say 20th anniversary, guys, it's going to be interesting. Now, guys, this episode isn't going to be that much, guys. And even though I'm coming close to 50 episodes of the Mr. GLOAT podcast, after the 50th episode is released, I have another YouTube channel, which I hope YouTube will not flag it for reasons that don't make sense, because I had 3 other YouTube channels that got flagged and I had to get rid of them, and luckily I did, and for reasons, because one didn't have videos and the others did have videos, but 0 views. So I just hope to God YouTube can I don't know what YouTube is doing. I don't understand anymore, but still, when I get to 50th episode of this Mr. GLOAT podcast, I have another YouTube channel out, which is the Mr. GLOAT. It's going to be another YouTube channel rendition, just like Mr. Beast, another YouTuber with over 300 million subscribers. I'm going to make it big on that YouTube channel for my Mr. GLOAT. I'm going to make it bigger than I can, and we'll see what happens in the future. It's going to be a smashing hit, and it's going to be great. Well, maybe not smashing than all others, but hey, if it gets to 10 million subscribers on my channel, if I get 10 million subscribers on my channel of Mr. GLOAT in the future, hey, I think that's a success, and I'm proud of that. So, but when we get to that, we won't get to that yet because I'm not at 50 episodes. And speaking about how many episodes I made, how many episodes did I actually release right now? As of right now, as looking at podcasts, I've done 43 episodes of Mr. GLOAT podcast, and this right here is episode 44. Now, guys, this episode is going to be like a half an hour long, so it's not going to be much. I only have 3 topics to talk about, and the first topic is going to be Canelo Alvarez. Now, in October the 25th, October the 29th, 2005 is what I meant to say, is when Canelo Alvarez had his first professional fight in a place called the Arena Chololo Larios in Tonala, Mexico. He had some fights there in the arena and in other places from Tijuana. And he did manage to win some great titles there, like the Jalisco welterweight and the WBA Fedecentro welterweight, and mostly the NABF welterweight in 2009, which got him onto the top of the food chain. And it got him bigger that same year, winning other like youth titles and silver titles in the middleweight. And by 2011, he got big. Yes, it stopped him after his Mayweather loss in 2013, but it got him onto that beaten path after some years. Like, he won a lot of fights, and even though some people thought it was like a Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. moment because Jr. did the same thing, but at least Canelo is getting his back together onto that. But the real story is about what is happening in boxing. Now, guys, in 2024, he took on Jaime Munguia, a guy that now has 2 losses during his only 4 fights this year in 2024. And now Munguia is now a Mexican bum right now after his loss against Canelo. I just guess he just didn't get used to it. He just couldn't handle his defeat after Canelo, and then now his career is dead. Even though the buy rate numbers were 560,000 buys that day, which is actually a little bit more than the Canelo versus Golovkin 3 fight, because that had 550,000 buys. Consider the revenue was 79,500,000 during that fight with the Golovkin 3 fight, but this one was 50,400,000. So who knows? And even it was bigger than the Bivol fight where he lost that fight, and that was worth 520,000 buys. Or even the John Ryder fight he did in the King of Coming Home that had 450,000 buys. So not much. He defeated Berlanga, another undefeated fighter, last September. And guess what? After having a little bit of a hilarious moment with surprising, because ever since Turki Al-Sheikh from Saudi Arabia said that Canelo has to face some real opponents and stated that Jake Paul was not a real opponent, which is ouch there, but hey, he does got a point. We finally have the fight on May the 3rd in Kingdom Arena in Riyadh. So yeah, undefeated 23-0 William Sco with 9 knockouts. A guy that's living in Germany as we speak, and he's been living in Germany since. Like even during his pro career back in 2016, he was in Argentina. and he started boxing fights there. And then in 2018, during the end of the year, he moved to Germany, but went back to Argentina, and then went back again. And then he was traveling from country to country to Germany and Argentina in 2019 multiple times. But by the end of 2019, he decided to settle in Germany and box his way there. And then in May of 2024, he went to T-Mobile Arena with his first fight in the U.S., and he barely won, even after he knocked down a guy named Sean Hemphill, a guy that had 16 wins and 1 loss, but was a tough fighter to fight in his debut in America. And technically, he had to earn it, with one judge barely giving him a 76-75 because he knocked out Hemphill in the 5th round. And after that win, well, of course, we already know what happened. After the Alvarez versus Munguia fight, the IBF belt was stripped. And so a guy named Vladimir Shinskin went to Germany to fight against William Skull. He was a 16-0 fighter, and surprisingly, even though he was 33 years old and William was 32, they got a good 12-round decision. Judges had 116 to 113, 116 to 112, 115 to 113, favoring William Skull the winner. Now, people think that William Skull is an unknown quantity, and I don't blame him. Like, he's been boxing for 8 years, and he hasn't been taking a lot of good well, technically, I wouldn't say there wasn't a lot of competition. Like, he was the IBO International Super Middleweight title back in 2021. Even though the fighters he fought against that belt and the IBF Latino Super Middleweight, not hot. Like, he did take on Evgeny Shevchenko, a 15-0 fighter that was a promising Russian back then, and he had some interesting stuff. So that was the first legit opponent that William took on against. He even took on another guy in 2019 that was a 14-1 fighter in South America, and that was another good win for him. But everything else with the Sean Hemphill fight and this Vladimir fight, those are the only good 4 fights I could say about William Skull. So him getting this fight with Alvarez can prove to you that, does Alvarez have a year left? Now, people say that Alvarez might fight for another few years, and I'm saying to myself, hey, Alvarez still has his health. If he wants to retire, I think he should, because at this moment, guys, this is almost like carrying the torch. Like Iron Mike Tyson, his legit last fight, not the one last year ago, but his fight back in 2005 in June when he lost against an Irishman named Kevin McBride, and how that fight ended abysmal, and how Mike Tyson decided to say, just, hey, I'm sorry I threw everyone's money away, I'm sorry, and he just left the arena and never fought again. Or so we thought. So, and that was June. And then 4 months later, Canelo Alvarez went to boxing debut at a young age at 15 years old, and he's fighting. So I think it's possible that if Canelo Alvarez does have a couple fights in 2025, I would say at age 34 years old, I would say hang up the gloves after this fight's over. Even if he loses against William Skull, I don't think it would matter. Even if he even wins in a rematch in September, if they have a rematch, which that would be amazing, I would just say hang up the gloves. Hey, you lost a fight, you won the guy, and that's it. And it's possible because at this moment, like, he is in his mid-30s, but I don't think it's over for him. But at this moment, 20 years for Mike Tyson when he fought since 1985, retired in 2005, and forget about 2024. And almost like how Oliver McCall came back last week ago and won another fight, and now he's fighting again in March, which I would just say don't. But yeah, I think if Alvarez doesn't win this fight, I would still say it's a good way to end it in his career, because even if he doesn't defeat William Skull, I don't think it matters. But don't get me wrong, I will say William Skull does need to put things together in this fight, because I will say, though, it's going to be interesting because they're both orthodox fighters. William is 5'11.5", with Canelo's 5'7.5" stature. Interesting. He was 5'7.5". That's interesting because it said that during the time when Canelo defeated Sergey Kovalev for his WBO light heavyweight title in 2019, it said that he was 5'8". Huh. And William Skull is also the same height than Sergey Kovalev, also 5'11.5", I think. But so that makes this fight even more interesting for me to say that Man, Canelo needs to work something out here. Now, I'm not saying that this will be an easy win for Canelo, but I am expecting an upset victory here. Just like how Andy Ruiz Jr. defeated Anthony Joshua in Madison Square Garden 2019. So I am expecting an upset here, but just like Daniel Perkins in the course of Shields' undisputed heavyweight fight about some days ago, it might be the same domination, but don't forget that one punch can end people's lives forever. So I will say though, the fight's gonna take place in Kingdom Arena. But yet again, we don't know any other fights in the fight card, so we're just gonna have to wait and see as we speak and see what happens. By the way, guys, speaking about Saudi Arabia, we still have the February 22nd fight, ladies and gentlemen. The Artur Beterbiev versus Dimitri Bivol, undisputed light heavyweight 2 fight, and most importantly, more talk. So, guys, here's a second topic I like to talk about. It's really interesting. Artur Beterbiev, Dimitri Bivol put themselves together. They put in a light of competition after competition. And what makes this really interesting is that you throw yourself right into to a difficult situation here. Because guys, as for the light heavyweight champion, and I'm just going to look up light heavyweight as we speak, the light heavyweight division in boxing has brought a lot of amazement. Because Archie Moore, a young mongoose back in the 1940s and 50s and his 60s, when he was a famous boxer back then, known as the Old Mongoose, had a record of 9 successful title defenses, an amazement of 9 years, 4 months, and 24 days holding on to the undisputed title. Now, of course, that record almost got broken by a guy that was retaining the WBO back in the early 90s when the WBO was still not a legit belt, by a guy named Dariusz Zalowski, a guy that had a 48-0 record, lost by split decision in his country, and then lost another fight a year and a half later by knockout, ended his career, and he retained out that WBO belt 23 successful times, a world record, and almost undefeated 50-0, almost. He held it for 9 years, 1 month, and 8 days, and now Artur Beterbiev, he's hold the third record for the longest reigns in light heavyweight at 7 years, 2 months, 4 weeks, and 2 days. But here's the thing. He has only made a successful of title defenses for barely a while now. Like his win against Enrico Colling back in 2017 during the final seconds of the 12th and final round when he knocked down his opponent twice and won the fight by knockout was amazing. He defeats guys like Callum Johnson and another guy named Rado Kaujic, the guy that lost against David Morrell last August, as I said before. That's his second title defense. Then he wins the WBC belt against Alexander Golovkin. Gavaldijk, another guy that lost against David Benavidez as well the same year. And also, when did he win the... I don't know if he... Yeah, wait, did he win the IBF? Oh, no. By 2021, he comes back, defends a couple more times with Marcus Brown and Adam Dine, so that's his fifth title defense. And then his sixth title defense was for the IBF belt and defeated Joe Smith Jr., Anthony Yard in 2023, 2024 Callum Smith, and now Dimitri Bivol 9 times. So he's actually, and of course that was the IBO and the WBA belt. Amazing. So technically Artur Beterbiev has defended the belt 9 times right now. The only time we've ever had 10 successful title defenses were guys like Victor Gaudes from Argentinian, and he actually became a great Latino boxer back in the early days in the 70s when he retained out the WBO belt barely 10 times in his career, which was amazing. During, even though he defended that WBA belt since 3 years and 9 months, he still had 10 successful defenses. Or even Michael Spinks, when he actually became undisputed champion in the light heavyweight and his 10th title defense to become undisputed. And then he went to the heavyweight to defeat Larry Holmes twice, and then those other lame fights with Jerry Cooney, Blob, and Tyson ended his career. Virgil Hill, another guy that made 10 successful title defenses. Roy Jones Jr., fourth. Bob Foster, that's one guy that some people would remember if you heard about how he had some, technically interesting fights against Joe Frazier and Muhammad Ali, but failed. And also, here's another guy that had from the country of Hungarian named Zolt Erdei. Interesting name. Another guy that defended the belt 11 times. Man, Bob Foster had 14 times. Man, 11 times for Roy Jones Jr. That's 4, 5, 6. The seventh title defense. The seventh person to have to retain the belt was Dmitry Bivol. Yeah, he defended 12 times, but 9 more. Should have been 13. 8 was that WBO guy from Germany. Yep. So technically, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So 8 people have successfully defended the belt 10 times or more. So this is going to be an interesting thing is Dmitry Bivol going to become a 2-time champion and also be an undisputed champion? Or is Artur Beterbiev, a guy that's in his 40s right now, not in his prime anymore, gonna get his 10th successful title defense? Now, guys, at 40 years old, Artur Beterbiev, in my opinion, has nothing to gain for. He's not in his prime anymore than I think, so at this moment, his career might be done if he loses his fight. But if he actually successfully defends it, this will be the 9th boxer in history to defend the belt 10 times in light heavyweight history. So we're looking at 2 histories here. Are we going to see a Russian guy from Montreal, Quebec, Canada? Also, nationality is Canada, even though he's born in Russia. Or are we going to see a born Russian, actually formerly born in Kyrgyzstan, but living in Indio, California, actually become undisputed light heavyweight champion? Well, who knows? And guys, I love that in BoxRec they had David Benavidez at number 2 and Bivol at number 3. Because, yeah, like at this moment, David Benavidez picked up that win, as we just talked about in my last podcast with the Daniel Perkins and Quisha Shields, how he managed to barely squeak out, getting knocked out by Morrell, and then that penalty, that, how controversial that was, and then wins the fight, becomes 2-time undisputed, 2-time weight class champion. And even though Benavidez is 28 years old, I can almost see a fight against him and Beterbiev. Here's the thing, guys. This is some information I had a few months ago, I think it was a month ago. It stated that even if Benavidez did defeat David Morrell, which he did, and if Bivol defeats Artur Beterbiev, and they're going to have a trilogy fight maybe a few months from now, Benavidez is just going to say, screw it, I'm going to cruiserweight. But after he squeaked out a couple great wins against Alexander Vosdyk and David Morrell in light heavyweight, to be honest, I would say, though, that at this moment, I don't know if this is going to be possible, because at this moment, I'm like, well, in my opinion, Artur Beterbiev is 40 years old. Even if he does win this rematch fight, I don't think it's going to be possible for him to take on David Benavidez, because Benavidez is 12 years old, younger than Artur Beterbiev. He's 28, Artur is 40, and even Bivol's 34 years old, and David Morrell is 27. So who knows? Also, Morrell is number 5 in the ranks right now, while we have a British boxer named Joshua Buatsi that's 19-0, 31 years old, and he's the WBO interim world light heavyweight champion. And he also has a fight against Callum Smith in Saudi Arabia, the same venue where we'll have the undisputed clash against Beterbiev and Bivol. And Joshua Buatsi also has his own stuff, because he's rated number 4, and at this moment, he's 19-0. If he does win this fight against Callum Smith, a guy that's already failed out a couple bad fights already, well, I would just say good luck, because that might bring him a good chance as well to make it big again. So Joshua Buatsi, if he goes 20-0, it's possible I could see an interesting fight with him, and maybe Artur Beterbiev as well. He is a young kid as well, so let's try to give him a chance. Don't get me wrong, Joshua Buatsi, yes, he's 31 years old, born in Ghana, but living in the UK, but I don't think that's going to hurt. It might be a good success. So, and as I said before, I talked about the DeBlanc Parker fight and Ajit Cabello and Zhang fight. It's going to be interesting of how those fights happen. Know what's going to happen for Floyd Schofield and Shakur Stevenson. That's going to be an interesting fight. And even Virgil Ortiz Jr. and Israel Madrimov. Well, that's going to be something interesting to talk about. And also Carlos Adams and Hamza Shiraz. And guys, I don't want to talk much about this entire card because I have talked about it in episodes, but we'll see what happens in the future as we speak. But it's going to be interesting where you see some punching going on here. But when you look at it from a perspective point, it might give us something to look at. So let's try to focus on what's going to happen after this show happens. But the light heavyweight might get some good buzz. So, guys, before we get to the third and final topic today, guys, consider this episode. So, guys, consider that this episode is being released on Valentine's Day, and I just like to say, guys, I don't like Valentine's Day. It's such a sad holiday. Like, I'm just upset, guys, that I'm actually living in my house alone. I have no one to love, no one to talk to, no girl. I just don't like it. It's just not a good holiday for me, and there's just no presents, no gifts. There's nothing, and even when I try to go out to public, there's nothing good, and it just makes it really sad for me to just. Why should I be living in this world? I should just rather die because I'm 26 years old, the same age as Mr. Beast. What's the point of me if I'm not going to get success or even have no love or no female entertainment? It's just a horrible holiday, and I hate every bit of it. It's just not fun, and I just don't like it. I just don't like it. I'd just rather die. So anyway, so as we speak, guys, the history of Gervonta Davis, Junto Nakatani, Naoya Inoue, and mostly Alexander Usyk have been creating a lot of buzz in the boxing world. These guys have been putting out a lot of buzzes out there, and there has been a lot of interesting competition from top to bottom. Now, Gervonta Davis, we're still thinking that they're going to have this Lamont Roach fight on March the 1st in Brooklyn Barclays Center, but someone said the fight was canceled like a few weeks ago. We don't know. Inoue is still trying to go forward after the fight against Yi Jun Kim, and yet again, we don't know what's going to happen there. Junto Nakatani also still has his good fight in February the 24th against David Suar Contreras for his WBC World Bantamweight, which will be his bigger fight of the entire day of his career because that guy is a Mexican fighter, and it might put in a hard fight for Junto Nakatani because Junto Nakatani hasn't been making a lot of great fights right now. He needs to get better competition if he wants to prove himself. And Naoya Inoue has been proving himself, even though there's a lot of fighters that are ducking him no matter what. So at this moment, after his Luis Nuri fight was a pretty interesting fight last year, which was a good fight for Inoue. And even though TJ Doheny last September, it was just an interesting fight because I was looking at a guy that had an undefeated record in Japan, a guy that won 4 straight fights from 2018 to win 1 fight for the IBF World Super Bantamweight against another Japanese fighter he won, and Doheny went back to Japan in 2023 fighting 3 straight fights, 1 in June, 1 in October, and 1 in May, and had some great knockout highlights in that fight from his Asia Pacific title in the Super Bantamweight. So it had some fans thinking that Inoue should teach him a lesson because TJ Doheny has been in a great environment in Japan, being undefeated 4-0. So I understood how that fight brought up, and don't get me wrong, I was a little bit entertained by what Inoue was doing. But after Sam Goodman had to throw away everything that he had to do, it just really pushes you to a limit of so much problem because it just makes me feel there's problems and problems and problems, but you look at it and you look at it farther, it does bring you some interesting insights on what we're looking at while the future is moving on. So I think when the more older Inoue gets, I think some of these younger fighters will find that courage to take him out. And even though Inoue does have a good amount of several good years into him, because at this moment, 13 years of fighting, and I would say he might have another good 4 more years left. So it's going to bring in some interesting moments. I think by the end of this decade of the 2020s, he might I can almost say hang up the gloves, but yet again, I will say though, Inoue has stated that he's not going to move up to weight class depending on how good his body weight is, or depending on what the division is going to give him. Because at this moment, there's nothing interesting. Like John Rio Casamaro's number 2, but that guy's in his mid 30s, just like Luis Nure. TJ Doheny, and at this moment, there is some interesting stuff, but after Sam Goodman pulling out the fight twice is just not good. So I really don't know what to say about this. Like, I'm not blaming Inoue for the competition of his last 2 fights weren't good, but yet again, for what we're looking at, I really can't say much about it for what it is. Like, it is what it is, but who knows? Like who really knows what's going to happen when we see what happens? Now, at this moment, guys, Alexander Usyk, this is the last topic I can think about. Now, guys, I will say though, guys, next week, maybe I think it's the 21st or the 22nd when I'll make another podcast, which will be my 45th episode. It's going to be Clarissa Shields and the top 3 fights on my list. I already did Alexander Usyk reviewing his entire career from which was my favorite top 3 fights of his career. So I'm also going to do a top 3 list for Clarissa Shields, and which are my top 3 fights that might be Clarissa Shields' biggest moments of her life. So I will do that next week, and it might be a quick video just like this one, probably like 30 to 40 minutes. It's going to be a quicker episode than Canelo Alvarez, than Alexander Usyk, so who knows? The thing is, guys, it is going to be interesting. So when looking at this, I would say this might bring in some interesting buzz in boxing here for some reasons. Now, Alexander Usyk is 38 years old, and even his, well, to be honest, I really don't know what to say about this one. This one's going to be interesting because I've seen a lot of interesting stuff. And guys, ever since I really don't know what to say about this one. Guys, when I look at Alexander Usyk and his career, it's really interesting. Now, guys, Alexander Krasyuk, the K2 promoter that's promoted for Alexander Usyk in his career, and he also has a couple other fighters that he's promoting with right now that have undefeated records, and even though their careers are different and they are southpaw fighters, and even though since 2006 and now 2025, he's only promoted 47 events in his career, and his last event was in August the 28th, which was the Daniel Dubois and Alexander Usyk fight, and how Dubois lost that fight was crazy. It's going to be interesting when you talk about it. Oh yeah, and by the way, guys, have people heard about the horrible comments that happen? Guys, by the way, before we get to Alexander Usyk, I'd just like to talk about one more thing, and I'm almost done with this episode. So, I also heard that Dennis Berinchik, the WBO World Lightweight title, was almost in threat by Keyshawn Davis. Even though they're fighting tomorrow in Madison Square Garden Theater on February the 14th, so get your tickets to watch that. It's gonna be a good main event for that fight. Jared Anderson is gonna come back after his loss against Martin Bacall, so that's gonna be interesting to see if Jared Anderson still has it. And the fighter he's taking on is a nobody, but it might be a somebody, so who knows? But yeah, again, and we have 2 undefeated fighters that are both 20-0 in the super welterweight, and they're fighting for the North American Boxing Federation and the WBO NABO super welterweight title, so good luck with that. But after Dennis Berinchik, a guy that's in his mid-30s, and even though I wouldn't say he has good style, like 19 wins, 9 knockouts, good luck. But even though I don't think he's much of a competitor, I will wish him luck. Well, to be honest, guys, it's not tomorrow. To actually, as I'm recording this, guys, it's now 6 p.m. on the 14th of February right now. It's Valentine's Day, so Technically, I don't know why I said tomorrow. I forgot today's Friday. But yeah, I just wish Dennis Baranchek good luck. But I don't know. He might win, but yeah, he might lose. So who knows? But yeah, anyway, guys, back to Alexander Usyk. Alexander Usyk, ever since Alexander Krusyak, his promoter, telling him that he's not going to retire, he might take breaks, this or that. The thing is, guys, the problem about this is that I'm not saying that Alexander Usyk should retire if he wants to. They said, oh, he might continue fighting. And guys, even though I did say that Alexander Usyk, even if he defeats Tyson Fury for a second time, I still see Alexander Usyk having a couple more fights left in him. The problem is, what's his next fight going to be? Like, we already have Agit Kabayel, Zhilei Zhang fighting each other for title and title to know who the best is. We still have Martin Bakal fighting in the ranks. Lawrence Okali is in the top 10 ranks right now, and he's already in a big push. But we only have Daniel Dubois and Joseph Parker. The problem about this, guys, is that if Daniel Dubois does defeat Joseph Parker, it's going to be abysmal to watch because it's just going to make us have more problems for why Alexander Usyk has to continue fighting British fighters. It's just really sick, and it just makes it really, really bad for my stomach because I don't know why we have to keep watching another British fighter that, guys, British people don't have brains. Like, I don't like it. And guys, I'm not accusing Dubois because he's an African American. No, I'm not saying that. Like, I've already accused enough fighters already that were involved in fighters like Huggy Fury and how Tommy Fury, and well, technically they're in their own worlds right now because I don't know if they have a chance to be in the ranks anymore because their careers are bummed, just like Tyson Fury. But yet again, or even Lucas Rozonski, the Polish fighter that lost against Lawrence Okali, and how I thought, well, Polish fighters are dead, or how Mitsuru Brandon Tajima from Japan already lost his first fight and ended heavyweight boxing in Japan. Now there's no Japanese fighter in the heavyweights that wants to box anymore. But I'm just tired. Guys, we have plenty of other fighters. I think Agit Kabayel, like, even if he does defeat Zhilei Zhang, or if Zhilei Zhang defeats Agit Kabayel, I want to see one of those fighters take on Alexander Usyk. Like, Zhang and Agit Kabayel have never had a title shot in their life, and this is their once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Zhilei Zhang has had more opportunities, and people are throwing it away, and these British idiots are the ones, like, throwing everything to win back these titles against a Ukrainian fighter named Alexander Usyk. It's just embarrassing, and I just don't know why we have to keep watching this. I want to see Martin Bakal get a shot against Alexander Usyk. I just think this, if Daniel Dubois wins or barely wins against Joseph Parker, what's the point? He already lost by knockout by just a jab against Usyk, and that's how he lost the fight. There's nothing. He can't capitalize on nothing. He's still a young guy that has no brains of knowing what old age can be wise. It doesn't make sense, and I just don't know. So if he does win against Dubois, it's just going to be another waste of time for Usyk to get another push. And guys, is Usyk going to fight 2 times this year? I don't think so, but if he does have 1 or 2 fights in him in 2025, those might be the last good moments of his life. But by 2026 or 2027, I just don't see Usyk being in full shape anymore. So who knows what's going to happen? I just don't see Usyk getting that bigger chance. Like, his body might not handle anymore. Like, I do feel that when he turns 39 years old in January next year, I just don't know. It just doesn't work out. Like, this fight, if he takes for Daniel Dubois, is just going to be a waste of time. It's just going to be another win for Usyk. I just don't see Daniel Dubois having anything good about this. No one can outbox out Usyk except Father Time. That's the only thing that can defeat Usyk. But at this moment, I don't want to see another British fighter. I want to see Agit Kabayel, Martin Bakal, Joseph Parker, Zhilei Zhang to have their fights. Or Efe Jagba, or even Justice Hooney if he has what it takes. And guys, if you viewers think Moses Atama has what it takes to make it to the youngest champion of Mike Tyson, good luck. I just don't think of that. If I was Moses Atama, I would be like, take your time, take some years off, or even try to break Floyd Patterson's record to become the second youngest heavyweight champion. It's better than nothing. I just don't see him even making it to champion. At this moment, it's just a waste of time. There's no fighters boxing, and Usyk is going to be way past until May, which is it. So there's no point. Like, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. So we'll just have to wait and see, guys. We'll see what's going to happen in the future. But, guys, I'll see you viewers next week while I review my top 3 favorite fights of the Clarissa Shield. So thank you for watching this podcast. And Foxwell says goodbye.